Hi there, my name is Jim Kodelka. I'm a parent at Glencoe Elementary School here in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a member of the volunteer art infusion team. And today I'm going to show you preparation for firing ceramics that's been made by our children here at Glencoe, and proper maintenance and firing of the kiln under the guidelines of Glencoe. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do today is preparation for firing. And that involves looking at what's been made and drying it properly and then preparing it to be loaded into the kiln. In the case of this greenware, and greenware is when the clay has not been fired yet. So it's raw clay, it's either wet, it's either leather hard, which is like where it can still be carved. It's like the consistency of cold hard butter, or it's bone dry, which is when it's like most brittle. Now a piece can be bone dry, but it might not be dry, look bone dry, meaning kind of dry and chalky on the outside. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's dry on the inside. For instance, this is a very thick piece that my son made. This is solid clay. It's probably 2 inches thick at the thickest part. This would probably take over a week to dry. And if you notice, it's been carved out from the bottom on the inside. Carving that out allows moisture and air to be released. So if you have the children make something thick, either you as an instructor or have the children carefully carve out an area. That can be done with a tool, that can be done with a drill bit, that could even be taking a pin tool, what they call a pin tool, and piercing it with the pin tool. Every time you make a hole in the piece, it's a vent for moisture and steam to come out. Those are all very helpful things. A piece like this, which is probably about 3/8, quarter inch, 3/8 thick, this is going to dry very evenly and very quickly. So this would probably take, in these rooms which are pretty warm, this room and the art infusion room, this would probably take only about 2 days to dry enough. And the moisture is going to come off very openly because it's not solid, real solid anywhere. So that's a little bit about drying time. And it's really important to allow enough time to dry or for that moisture to escape when we do the bisque firing, so that we don't have an explosion. What happens is water boils, it's inside the core of this piece, it's getting activated and it wants to get out, so the way it gets out is by blowing the piece, and it can be quite violent. It will take this and shatter it into a lot of pieces that go all through the kiln. So when in doubt, dry it a little bit longer. It should feel somewhat kind of not super cold or damp when you put it to your face before you put it in the kiln. It should definitely be that chalky kind of dry bone color, okay? The next thing would happen is when it's time to put things in that are glazed, it's very important to check to see if there's any glaze on the bottom of the people's pieces. If so, you have two options. One is to wipe it off. If the children are available to do that, you might have them do it. So I have a big flat sponge here. I have a bucket of water. Wet the sponge, wring it out, and I can just take that sponge, put it to the table, and literally kind of push this down into the sponge. It's going to clean that up a certain amount up the side, and that's, or just take it with your hand and wipe that all away. Okay, so that when it's sitting to the shelf doesn't attach to the kiln shelf. These pieces have glaze on the bottom, and these would have stuck. These are fired, and they've been fired, and they do have glaze on the bottom. So the way that someone's probably done this is they've used these little stilts, what they call kiln stilts, and they've placed that on the shelf and then they've placed this on that. So it's a little prop, it's a little tripod that sets it up off the shelf. This will stick to the glaze, but there's a little point, and these knock off, and there's little kind of marred points on the glaze. This is a lot more work in some ways than wiping. So, you know, plus you have to have all these things which cost money. So either way, you can put these down, put this on top. You can see this has glaze on the bottom that would stick to the shelf. And like this one doesn't really fit to those posts. This is the only size that we have here, so I think. So anyways, you can use posts or you can wipe it clean, either way. But it's real important to have things properly dried. It's very important to have the glaze off the bottom. When they start sticking to the shelf, then we have issues with having to do a lot of maintenance and cleaning on the shelves. So that's a little bit about preparation before we start to load. The next thing that we'll address is actually loading of the kiln, okay?